Enterprise identity. It sounds super complicated, right? Well, in this explainer, we're going to demystify it by following the journey of a new hire on their very first day. And trust me, this journey reveals the invisible digital architecture that makes the modern workplace tick. You know the feeling, right? First day, you get your laptop, maybe a welcome packet, but what's really happening in the background? A complex digital process is kicking into high gear to bring your new professional identity to life. So let's follow the breadcrumbs. We're going to see exactly how a company manages and secures your digital identity from the moment you're hired. Okay, first things first. Before you can do anything, log in, send an email, access a single file, the company has to create a digital home for you. Think about it for a sec. Your name, your job title, who you report to, all that info has to live somewhere official, right? It can't just be floating around in some random spreadsheet. And that place is called a directory service. This is the absolute bedrock, the foundation of your digital life inside a company.
So a directory service is kind of like the organization's central nervous system for identity. And it's not just about people. It keeps track of everything: computers, printers, servers, you name it. If it's on the network, it's probably in there.
This is a perfect way to think about it. It really is like a massive digital phone book for the whole company. You can look people up, see which department they're in, but it does so much more than just store information. It's an active part of the system.
For like decades, the undisputed king of these services has been Microsoft's ActiveDirectory. You'll hear it called AD. And in most companies, AD is what we call the source of truth. That's a super important concept. It means if there's ever a disagreement between two systems about who you are, whatever AD says, that's the final word. That's the correct record.
And AD has been around for a long time. It kicked off way back in 1999, managing everything inside the four walls of an office. But, as companies started moving to the cloud, AD had to change with the times. It evolved to integrate with all these modern services, so it can manage your identity no matter where you are or what app you're using.
Okay, so our new employee is officially in the system. They have a digital identity living in Active Directory. Now it's time to actually use it.
Picture this. Our new hire sits down at their desk. They type in their username and password for the very first time. What's happening in that split second? That simple action is kicking off a really critical security process.
That process is called authentication, and it's all about answering one simple question. Are you really who you say you are? The system takes the password you just typed in and checks it against the records stored in that source of truth we just talked about, Active Directory. Now, this is super important, and it's where a lot of people get mixed up. Authentication is just step one. It's often confused with authorization, but they are completely different things. Authentication is about who you are. Authorization is about what you're allowed to do once you're in. Let's go back to that office ID card analogy. Authentication is like showing your ID to the security guard at the front door. The guard looks at your picture, checks your name, and confirms, yep, you're a valid employee. They've authenticated you. Congrats, you're in the building. So our employee is in. They're successfully logged in. They've been authenticated. The very next question is, what can they actually do? What doors can they open? And this is authorization. See, just because you're in the building doesn't mean you have free reign. Your ID card is programmed to only unlock certain doors based on your job. Maybe you can get into the IT department, but when you try to swipe it at the finance office, nope, red light. That's authorization in action, right there. So how do companies figure this all out? Who gets access to what? Well, it's all about following a few core security principles. The most common one is role-based access control, or RBAC, which is just a fancy way of saying your access is based on your job. And all of this is guided by a really simple but incredibly powerful idea, the principle of least privilege. It means you only get the bare minimum access you need to do your job and absolutely nothing more. All right, our new hire is logged in. They're using their main tools. But let's be real, a modern employee uses dozens of different web apps all day long. I mean, can you even imagine having to remember a different password for Salesforce, Google Drive, Workday, and then typing it in every single time you switch apps? It would be a total nightmare for productivity, not to mention a security disaster. Thankfully, there is a much, much better way. The magic behind this is a process called Federation, and it's what makes single sign-on, or SSO, possible. Think of Federation as a formal trust agreement. Your company's identity system basically tells an app like Salesforce, hey, we've already checked this person out, they're legit, you can trust them.
and Salesforce agrees to take your company's word for it.
So let's walk through this little behind-the-scenes dance. First, you try to open Salesforce. Salesforce has no idea who you are, so it immediately sends your browser over to your company's main logging page. We call that the identity provider. You log in there just one time. Once you're verified, the identity provider sends this secure, digitally signed ticket, a SAML assertion, back to your browser. Your browser then shows that ticket to Salesforce. Salesforce sees the trusted signature and says, "Awesome, come on in." And you never had to type in a second password.
Okay, so we followed our employee from the moment their account was created in ActiveDirectory to their first login, all the way to jumping between apps without a password in sight. Now let's zoom out and see how all these pieces fit into the larger company's strategy.
This whole field is called Identity and Access Management, or IAM, and it really rests on three main pillars. We've mostly been talking about access management. That's the stuff that handles your daily logins, SSO, all that. But there's also identity governance, which manages your identity's entire life cycle, from the day you're hired to the day you leave. And critically, there's Privilege Access Management, or PAM, which puts extra strong security around the real keys to the kingdom, those super powerful administrator accounts.
So why is this so important? Well, while all this stuff sounds pretty fundamental, the reality is kind of shocking. Out of an estimated 334 million companies in the world, only about 300,000 are thought to be using modern identity tools. I mean, that gap is massive. It represents one of the biggest security risks out there today, and it's exactly why getting this right is more critical than ever before.
When you boil it all down, it comes to this. Your digital identity is the new security perimeter. It's the key that unlocks the entire kingdom. So the central challenge for every single organization today isn't just about building higher walls. It's about making sure every single one of those keys is secure, used correctly, and returned the moment you leave. That's the question at the very heart of modern cybersecurity.